Hello and welcome back to Cawnawyn's Cave. I am Cawnawyn Moore and today we're going to talk about the Phantom Queen. So, what is the Phantom Queen? The Phantom Queen in its most basic form is a piece I am writing for mezzo-soprano accompanied by symphony orchestra and SATB choir as well as a handful of Irish traditional instruments. This is a devotional work in honor of the Irish goddess, the Morrigan, who I primarily work with as a witch. All of the text of each of these three movements of this piece are taken directly from the ancient Irish texts that hold her stories, her trials, her victories, and her battles. And I'm either using English translations of the Irish or the Irish itself. So let's rewind for a moment because I want to talk about how this all started. I went to college to compose music for film, television, and theater. And the first school that I went to in pursuit of this degree was the Boston Conservatory of Music, Dance, and Theater in Boston, Massachusetts. In my time there, I grew very close to a roommate of mine who was a mezzo-soprano, and she and I discovered we had a lot of similar tastes and interests, and she recommended to me that I look into the Irish goddess, the Morrigan, in the hopes that I would compose a piece for her to sing about the Morrigan. And at the time, there were not near as many public and free resources about the Morrigan, but I was nonetheless very inspired because I've always been a bit of a dark and scary person. And at the time, that was a lot of what the material was online about her. So it definitely was something that I was quickly interested in, and I did in fact write a piece in a draft form for her, for mezzo-soprano, and it had a piano accompaniment, taking what little information I could gather at the time. This was in about 2013. Now, years and years later, of course, in my last video, I talked a bit about how I got into astrology and into witchcraft, the last couple of years of my life being the mother of two kids and really sinking into my role in the community as a high priestess with divine warrior witches. And it's been busy, to say the least. But when I first stepped into witchcraft, naturally, I remembered the piece that I had written for the Morrigan and started researching her, reading a number of fantastic resources and books and websites that are now available, all of which I will put in the description below and would highly recommend to anybody if you're looking into working with the Morrigan. Please, please, please use the great resources that are available that teach you the original Irish text, the original history and lore of who she is. I also want to invite you, if you're interested in my spiritual approach with the Morrigan, to listen to the Witchspace podcast episode where we did a Morrigan table talk alongside Morgana from Modern Druid in New York. We had a really fantastic discussion about a lot of the misconceptions and stereotypes that she gets and how better to work with her in a way that is truer to her real story, to what she represents, to her true power. In recent years, I have been blessed to have many moments where she has held my hand through the darkest of times and the deepest of dark holes I've gone down, as well as really fortified me and bolstered me in moments of victory and true confidence and joy. And for that, I am so grateful to her. And as an artist, this is my craft. This is the highest form of devotion that I can offer. And so that is why I've chosen to write this piece in its most complex form. And she does not take shortcuts. She expects you to show up and do the work. So not only is this piece just going to be performed, but it needs to be entirely notated, much of which I've never learned how to do. The largest ensemble that I've written for is for a small sinfonietta. So to learn to write for a symphony orchestra is something that I had some coaching in school, but for the most part was very limited to what I can create out of my DAW or my digital audio workstation for the purpose of underscoring a film or a theater production. This is going to actual instrumentalists. So I have to learn to score all these instruments. I also have to perform the piece because I have decided that I would like to, plain and simply. I have, since I went to Boston Conservatory, received vocal musical training, classical vocal music training. I am also a classically trained pianist and violinist. In the question of who should perform it, I really would like to be the one to do this and to train my body to be able to do this, which I see as part of the devotional to her, to really sort of train myself into the portrayal of her that I think is appropriate and fitting for her, which is no less than actually turning myself into something that I believe resembles close enough the Phantom Queen. And I say this with a lot of humility. I hope people understand that my goal is to have this work premiered. And because I am writing it, because I am a witch in service to the Morrigan, I do feel like it is appropriate for me to perform this And it is my sincere hope and wish that this piece can be performed by many, many, many other singers in lots of different arenas and styles. And I don't want it to be limited to just my voice. I absolutely want to share this with the world, to whoever finds meaning in this, to whoever finds this to be a piece that they would like to pursue singing. While I may be the originator of this music, I by no means want to be the end-all be-all. I want this to go out to the people who want to hear it, to want to celebrate the Morrigan, and anybody who wants to sing it, I want to make it available. And it is with great honor that I take up this first performance as a singer and composer. So, now that I got that off my chest, so what else does this mean? Well, I would like to share the process of creating this work with anybody who's interested. And I've already shared a number of short videos online. You can find all of them on my main Cawnawyn channel, as well as on my Instagram and my TikTok if you follow me there. And those videos are, so far I think I've shared a bit of the text that I'm using. I sung a little bit of the second movement. I've shared a prayer that I've often spoken to the Morrigan, some of the resources I've used, as well as here on Cawnawyn's Cave, I want to take you on the process, on the journey of this entire piece. And I have a lot of footage that I've taken over the years that I cannot wait to share. And it is my hope at some point that I would be able to collect all this into some sort of documentary style, how I did it in the future. But for now, I can take you on this journey month by month, and I hope to upload at least monthly to share the progress of how this is all going. So I want to write it, obviously, and have it in a score format that I could hand to a musician and they'd be able to play it. But I also want to premiere it because I am somewhat of an amateur filmmaker, also amateur seamstress. My hope is that I can create it into a large-scale video project as well. Now, I do not live in Ireland. I live in the Pacific Northwest, and while it is beautiful here, I do not have the budget to go to Ireland to film, so I will be doing the best with what I can around here, and have already scouted out numerous locations that can evoke the presence of the Morrigan, perhaps in her natural state in Ireland, basically creating an entire music video. And that means costumes, that means setting, that means online performance and virtual recording. So that is kind of where you come in, listeners. If you are a musician out there or a singer out there who'd be interested in performing in this, I am absolutely, when the time comes, going to be hoping that people might want to help. Anybody who is a devotee of the Morrigan who wants to perform is welcome, because I really feel who better than to perform this virtually than the Morrigan's army themselves. And so that is an invitation I want to extend out to anybody who might be following this and might be interested in doing something like that. I do have a number of incredible mentors and musician friends in the area who not only have offered incredible extensive training for me and really transformed my voice and my musicality, but also have even offered so far as to premiere the work in the future, which I am so grateful for that, because to have this performed live would just be the biggest dream come true. But in the meantime, if you or someone you know would be interested or perhaps willing and able to perform a virtual recording of this, it is definitely something that I will be seeking out in the near future. I will also be making costumes that would be as close as possible to something that perhaps the Morrigan might have worn in an age that she might have been with us here in the three-dimensional Earth. I'm looking at a lot of historical examples and pieces. I'm hoping to use historically accurate fabric as well as perhaps even dyeing techniques. That is something that is a little ambitious for me, but why not? And why not share the process with you guys? Because I'll be learning and you can be learning too. And lastly, where I'm at so far with this. So as I mentioned, I have had 2 children in the last 3 years. With COVID, I was very out of practice with my singing and have since not been able to sing with any large groups, but I have had the honor and privilege of singing with the symphony as a soloist in the past, as well as a few women's groups in the area and choirs. I'm working on my training again. I'm trying to get myself into shape to portray not just, you know, a queen, but a sovereign warrior queen. And so trying to get myself into the best shape possible so that I may be able to sing and compose this in a disciplined manner and get it out of me. Let the music be heard. And doing this with a very busy schedule, raising amazing two little ones has taken a lot of work. It's why I've nicknamed this the Great Work, because it's not just a piece. It's not just a song for mezzo-soprano. It has truly taken over my life. And I've talked a little bit about this on my blog, which is called The Dark Moon Chronicle on Cawnawynmore.com. It really has taken a complete rewiring of my brain. I've been learning Irish in the process of doing this. I've been consulting numerous resources and trying to get in touch with traditional Irish musicians and native voices. I've really tried to make my schedule conducive to actually composing in a way that I can take my time and not have to rush anything, which in and of itself causes issues because then I tend to be a perfectionist. So learning how to balance those things and when it is in fact ready to go. So where am I right now? I have composed thoroughly the first movement out of 3. I have the vocal composition, like all of the vocal lines completely composed for all 3 movements. I have a visual guide completely created for all 3 movements because I do compose visually, and I'll explain more of what that means in vlogs to come on this subject. I have pretty much the exact idea of what the costumes are going to look like. I have locations scouted, and I have the instrumentation pretty much nailed down at this point. It's the time that I need to invest into composing this all the way through. As many of you might know, I am currently in the process of composing an album, and I'll be sharing the whole making of process with you on this channel as well. And so once that happens and is released into the public, my entire attention gets to return to the Great Work. I've had just some deviations in the last couple months, which have been great because every now and then kind of need a creative break. And now I'll be able to focus as November comes on the Great Work again. But in the meantime, I've been recording so much content, and I hate to keep teasing a lot of this, but I promise it's coming. I just wanted to get this out there and actually share what this project is. I hope this clears up for any of you out there who might be interested in this. What the heck I'm doing? What do I mean when I'm talking about the Phantom Queen? Follow for more progress, because there is in fact far more progress coming. God, seeing the support, seeing the enthusiasm from people that have come out of just nowhere to offer support and love for the work has been really exciting, and so I'm so filled with gratitude. Thank you to anybody who's been watching and listening and taking part in this energetically, because gosh, I'm just so lucky to even have the privilege to work on this. Please stay tuned. Please know I approach this work with great humility, with an openness and dear desire to learn, to grow, to expand, to know, and to just share the text itself about the Morrigan with the world, and to celebrate her with all those out there who work with her. So a big Gora Mahagat to you for listening this far, and hail the Phantom Queen! I'm doing it! All right, let's get to work, shall we?